Real Madrid have done something this summer that could completely change the way they attack. They already had Kylian Mbappé, they already had Vinícius Júnior, they already had Jude Bellingham, and now they have Diomande. But here's the interesting part. This isn't simply about adding another superstar to an already star-studded squad, because talent alone doesn't win football matches. The real question is this: what happens when José Mourinho puts all of this talent into one system? Imagine Vinicius attacking from the left, Diomande exploding down the right, Mbappé occupying the center, and Jude Bellingham arriving from behind them. Suddenly, Real Madrid aren't giving defenders one problem, they're giving them four. And that's what makes this project so fascinating, because Mourinho isn't simply building another collection of Galacticos, he is trying to build an attack with multiple ways to hurt you. And if he gets the structure right, Europe could have a serious problem. To understand this Real Madrid attack, we have to start with the man controlling it, José Mourinho. The Mourinho of 2026 isn't exactly the same Mourinho we remember from 2010, but one thing has remained remarkably consistent. He loves giving his attacking midfielder a defined role inside a 4-2-3-1, and that is exactly what Real Madrid are building around. Two midfielders behind, Bellingham as the number 10, Vinicius on the left, Diomande on the right, Mbappé through the middle. Reports from Real Madrid's preseason suggest this is the attacking structure Mourinho is working toward, and tactically, it makes sense. Mourinho doesn't need his team to dominate possession simply for the sake of possession. He wants progression, he wants verticality, he wants the ball recovered. One vertical pass, and suddenly the forwards are running at an unbalanced defense. That's where this Real Madrid squad becomes dangerous, because once the ball goes forward, Mourinho has players who can turn 5 seconds of transition into a goal, and this is where the attack starts to make sense. Let's start with the obvious three: Vinícius Júnior, Kylian Mbappé, and Diomande. But don't think of them as three forwards doing the same thing. That's exactly what makes this interesting. Vinícius is the chaos creator. He wants to isolate defenders, attack the left side, accelerate into space, and force defensive rotations. Then you have Diomande. At just 19 years old, the Ivorian winger arrives from RB Leipzig after a breakout season in which he recorded 12 goals and 9 assists. Real Madrid have committed to him on a 7-year deal, with the transfer potentially reaching 125 million euros before add-ons. And then there's Mbappé, the central threat, the player who can attack the space between center-back and full-back, or simply run beyond the defensive line. Now imagine the decision facing a defender. If you double-team Vinicius, you create space on the opposite side for Diomande. If you push a defender toward Diomande, Mbappé can attack the central channel, and if both wingers stay wide, Bellingham has space to arrive inside. That's the key. The danger isn't one individual. The danger is the interaction between them. You cannot solve 4 problems with one defensive decision, and that is exactly what Mourinho will want. But there is one player who could change the geometry of this attack: Diomande. Real Madrid didn't spend a club record fee on him simply because he is young and exciting. They bought a profile, speed, directness, 1-versus-1 ability, and perhaps most importantly, the willingness to attack space. His 2025-26 season at RB Leipzig produced 12 goals and 9 assists, which helps explain why Madrid were prepared to make such a major investment in a 19-year-old. But the most important question isn't, how many goals will Diomande score? It's, what does his presence force the opposition to do? That's the tactical question. With Diomande holding width on the right, the opposition cannot simply overload Vinicius. And because Diomande can attack defenders directly, the right side becomes a genuine source of progression rather than just a supporting area. That changes the balance of the entire attack. And this is where the comparison with Rodrigo becomes interesting. Rodrigo has tremendous quality, but Diomande gives Mourinho a different physical and tactical profile. More explosiveness, more direct running, and potentially a more aggressive threat in transition. That's why this signing could be much bigger than simply replacing one winger with another. It could change the way Real Madrid distribute attacking responsibility. But now we reach the player who could unlock everything: Jude Bellingham. For the last couple of seasons, there has been a question surrounding his role. Is he a midfielder? Is he a number 8? Or is he actually at his best as a number 10? Mourinho appears to have an answer. Put him behind Mbappe, let him play closer to the box, and let him attack. That's important because Bellingham's greatest weapon isn't simply what he does with the ball, it's what he does after releasing it. His late runs, his movement into the half spaces, his ability to arrive inside the box, and his physical presence. AS has specifically reported that Mourinho's preferred 4-2-3-1 is designed to bring Bellingham back into the media punter role where his attacking qualities can be maximized. And suddenly, look at the picture. Mbappe occupies the center, together. Vinicius stretches the left side, Diomandé stretches the right, and Bellingham attacks the space behind the striker. That's not just a front three anymore. That's a four-man attacking unit. And if Bellingham returns to the level we saw from him in his first Real Madrid season and at the 2026 World Cup, Mourinho may have found the missing piece. But here's where I think this Real Madrid attack becomes even more interesting. The secret isn't actually the front three, it's the players behind them. Because if Vinicius, Mbappe, and Diomande are going to attack at maximum intensity, someone has to create the structure that allows them to do it. And Real Madrid have made some very interesting additions. Denzel Dumfries gives Mourinho an aggressive right back who can provide width and make powerful overlapping runs. Marc Cucurella gives him another fullback capable of progressing the ball and supporting attacks from the left. And then there is Bernardo Silva, a completely different type of weapon. Bernardo can slow the game down, he can combine in tight spaces, he can progress possession, he can play as a midfielder, a number 10, or even from the right. AS has described him as Mourinho's tactical joker because of that versatility, and that matters, because the front four create the chaos, but the players behind them create the structure. The wider players stretch the pitch, the midfielders connect the lines, Bellingham attacks the final third, and the front three become the finishing weapons. That's how individual talent becomes a system. Now let's imagine the perfect Mourinho transition. Real Madrid win the ball, the opponent is disorganized, one vertical pass, and suddenly, Mbappe is running through the center, Vinicius is flying down the left, Diomandé is exploding down the right, and Bellingham is arriving behind them. Think about the defensive decision. If the center backs drop, Mbappe has room to carry the ball. If they step toward Mbappe, Bellingham can attack the space behind them. If the fullback moves inside to help, Vinicius or Diomandé gets the 1-versus-1, and if the defense tries to stay compact, the wingers stretch them horizontally. This is why transitions could become such a major weapon. Against a high defensive line, Mbappe attacks the space. Against a low block, Bellingham and Bernardo can help create combinations around the box. Against man-to-man defending, now you're asking defenders to survive 1-versus-1 situations against Vinicius and Diomandé, and that's the beauty of the system. Mourinho doesn't need 20 passes to create a chance. Sometimes, one recovery, one vertical pass, and 3 explosive runners can be enough. But now we arrive at the biggest question, and it's not tactical, it's human. Can José Mourinho control all of this talent? Because every superstar has expectations. Mbappe wants goals, Vinicius wants freedom, Bellingham wants to influence the game from attacking areas. Diomandé has arrived for a huge fee and will expect opportunities. And then there is Arda Güler. Güler has been one of the standout performers of Real Madrid's preseason, and he has been used heavily as a number 10. But with Bellingham returning, that position becomes extremely competitive. Then you still have Rodrigo, Brahim Diaz, and other players fighting for minutes. So Mourinho's biggest challenge isn't simply finding 11 talented players. It's deciding who gets freedom, who gets responsibility, and who has to sacrifice. Because if everyone wants the ball, the system breaks. If everyone wants to attack, the balance disappears. And this is where Mourinho's personality becomes important. He has always demanded structure. He has always demanded tactical discipline. And now he has to convince some of the biggest attacking stars in world football that sacrificing a little freedom could actually give them more opportunities to score. That is the real test. Not whether Mourinho can coach talent, but whether he can make talent cooperate. So, is this Real Madrid's next great attack? I think the potential is undeniable. Vinicius gives them unpredictability. Mbappe gives them finishing and depth. Diomandé gives them explosiveness on the right. Bellingham gives them an extra goal threat from midfield. Bernardo gives them control and intelligence. And Mourinho gives them structure. But potential is not the same thing as success. Barcelona remain the benchmark in Spain, and Real Madrid still have to prove that these players can function together when the pressure becomes real. The Champions League, the Clásico, the knockout stages, the moments where one mistake ends your season, that's where this project will be judged. And Diomandé, at 125 million euros potentially becoming the club's record signing, the pressure will be enormous. But I don't think Madrid bought him simply to become another superstar. They bought him because his profile gives Mourinho another solution. And that's much more important, because talent gives you possibilities. Structure turns those possibilities into trophies. Maybe Real Madrid didn't need another Galactico. Maybe they needed a system where Vinicius can be Vinicius, where Mbappe can attack the spaces he loves, where Yan Diomande can unleash his explosiveness, where Jude Bellingham can return to the box and become a genuine scoring threat again, where Bernardo Silva can connect everything together, and where Mourinho can turn all of that talent into something coherent. Because if he can, then Real Madrid won't simply have 4 famous attacking players. They will have 4 players whose movements create problems for each other, and that is a completely different level of danger. Vinicius creates chaos, Diomandé creates explosiveness, Mbappe creates creates fear, Bellingham creates uncertainty, and Mourinho's job is to make all four move as one. If he succeeds, Real Madrid may not just have the most dangerous attack in Spain, they may have built the attack Europe will spend the entire season trying to stop, and perhaps that is the real beginning of Mourinho's second era at Real Madrid.